19 black R&B legends who were the worst junkies in history. In Hollywood, dazzling stage lights often act as a blinding curtain. We worship these powerhouse icons, entirely consumed by the golden illusion of their untouchable success. But when the applause fades, fame's crushing pressure takes over. Behind the platinum records and cheering crowds lies a silent predator, unfathomable temptation and disastrous, fatal choices. Today we will tear away the forgiving spotlight to expose the earth-shattering secrets of 19 legendary black music icons who plunged into the darkest abysses of R&B and hip-hop history. Their illusion shattered, leaving behind nothing but tabloid fodder and an unfillable void. Brace yourself. This truth will absolutely haunt you. Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Let us examine a single grotesque artifact, a battered, skull-topped cane left behind in a French hospital room in February 2000. Under the dazzling stage lights, this prop was the symbol of rock and roll's mad witch doctor, a powerhouse who dragged coffins onto the stage. But strip away the macabre performance, and that cane supported a man whose reality was far more terrifying. Hawkins was consumed by an invisible enemy, a lethal cocktail of 7 bourbon bottles a week, chased with sleeping pills and amphetamines. He lived a chaotic double life, earning massive payouts that evaporated into ashes. He burned his royalties on hard liquor, call girls, and hotel trashing rampages across America. He left behind scorched curtains, smashed mirrors, and a trail of battered women too afraid of public disgrace to speak up. The IRS became his merciless foe, hunting his unreported income, while he just laughed and continued the chaos. When surgical complications finally stopped his heart, the earth-shattering secret of his existence was laid bare. His estate wasn't a fortune. It was a few dusty capes, a beat-up Cadillac, and the lingering royalties of "I Put a Spell on You." But the true chilling speculation materialized when over 50 strangers claimed his bloodline. A DNA test confirmed 33 biological children scattered globally, none of whom knew their father's embrace. They fought bitterly for meaningless scraps like that very skull-topped cane. In the end, his spell was an illusion. He birthed an army of souls, yet died entirely alone, leaving a legacy defined strictly by its emptiness. As the dirt was shoveled over this fractured family tree, another musical pioneer was already constructing a very different kind of empire, one cemented not by absent parenting, but by bruised flesh and absolute, inescapable control. Ike Turner. On December 12, 2007, a man lay dead on a sofa for 18 hours before anyone even noticed. Beside his cold body sat a porcelain dish dusted with cocaine residue, a rolled-up $100 bill, and an empty whiskey glass. His liver was severely damaged, his heart failing, his body wasting away from a chronic overdose. His estate was worth a pathetic $13,412, an old piano and fading memories. This lonely corpse was once hailed as the powerhouse architect of rock and roll. Long before this raw agony, Ike Turner birthed Rocket 88 in 1951, claiming the world's first rock song. With the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, he crafted an empire. But the golden illusion of their glamorous marriage was a suffocating nightmare. For 19 years, it was a toxic romance built on blood. Tina survived on $50 a week while Ike pocketed $30,000 a night. He wielded his fists and guitar chords like weapons, recording his physical punishments in a notebook as if beating his wife was standard management. He forced his band into a disguised sex ring, siring at least 11 illegitimate children. He carried a gun in his coat to ensure absolute, terrifying compliance. When Tina finally escaped in 1976 with just 36 cents, the illusion shattered. Without his primary victim, the invisible punishment began. Ike descended into a 72-hour cocaine binge that left him bleeding on bathroom floors. Between 1981 and 1985, he totaled 5 luxury cars and was arrested 9 times. He was a silent predator who eventually preyed on himself, spending 18 months in prison only to bash his own head against the cell walls. In the end, he was entirely consumed by the monstrous void he created. True power is never built by breaking others, it only guarantees you will be broken alone. While one tyrant suffocated his muse behind closed doors to orchestrate his dominance, a far more overt warlord was preparing to weaponize an entire Los Angeles record label, turning executive boardrooms into active war zones where contracts were literally signed in blood. Suge Knight. The music industry is a machine that thrives on blood, and Suge Knight was its ultimate enforcer. Hollywood didn't just tolerate this silent predator, it crowned him, turning Death Row Records into an untouchable empire. In a system built on exploitation, Knight weaponized fear, staffing his office entirely with armed gang members. Artists didn't just sign contracts, they bled for them. When he reportedly had Eazy-E hung from a ceiling to forcefully release Dr. Dre, executives looked away because the move rapidly generated $75 million. But the system always collects its debts, and the sudden drop began in 1996. While Tupac Shakur took 4 fatal bullets, Knight sat right beside him, completely unharmed. The chilling speculation quickly spread that Knight orchestrated the hit to stop his biggest star from leaving the label. His invisible punishment was swift and absolute. His empire fractured as artists bailed, over $30 million vanished, and Death Row crashed into a staggering bankruptcy. Stripped of his golden illusion, Knight's final descent was an act of raw violence. Deliberately running over Terry Carter on a 2015 movie set wasn't an accident. It was the inevitable climax of a man who believed he was entirely above the law. Now, inmate P76518 scrubs prison floors for a pathetic $12 a month, serving a 28-year sentence. The industry will gladly fuel its dazzling stage lights with your blood, but the moment you become a liability, it simply locks you in a cage. Beneath the sprawling shadows cast by these ruthless moguls, the industry's grinding gears also eagerly devour those completely unequipped for the darkness, swallowing innocence whole long before adulthood can even take root. Frankie Lymon. The trajectory of a lifetime can pivot entirely on a single, microscopic moment. For the 13-year-old prodigy whose voice propelled "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" to sell 150,000 copies daily, the fatal choice wasn't forged in a boardroom. It happened in 1957 backstage after a Georgia show, when he decided to try heroin just once. That single hit became the merciless foe that relentlessly hunted him down. The golden illusion of his teen idol status, generating millions while surviving on a pathetic $10 weekly allowance, instantly mutated into raw agony. Within 9 months, the bright-eyed boy was wasting away, taking the stage as a glassy-eyed, singing corpse. Kicked out of his group by 1958, desperation forced another disastrous choice, repeatedly selling his song rights using forged papers. This act of fraud piled up $80,000 in charges, transforming him into tabloid fodder and ensuring a complete industry ban. He spiraled through 3 chaotic, broken marriages, leaving behind trashed apartments and unpaid debts. A final rehab attempt in 1967 brought fleeting hope, but the ripple effect of that first Georgia hit proved absolute. Days after securing a comeback advance, he blew it on one last syringe. Found dead at 25 in his grandmother's bathroom, his story confirms that a single reckless curiosity easily becomes an inescapable death sentence. As a quiet needle drained the lifeblood of a fading teen idol, a different kind of prodigy's internal darkness would soon erupt outwardly, weaponizing his fists to shatter an angelic image in a 90-second storm of unforgivable brutality. Chris Brown. On the surface, the late 2000s broadcasted a picture-perfect romance, a glittering fairy tale starring the undisputed heir to American R&B and his pop princess counterpart. Their public performances were masterclasses in the golden illusion, radiating youth, explosive talent, and flawless choreography. But beneath the curated smiles and forgiving camera flashes, a silent predator of extreme jealousy, ego, and cocaine was actively mutating. On February 7, 2009, the sudden drop arrived with terrifying velocity. A 90-second explosion of unchecked rage inside a parked Lamborghini tore away the filter, exposing the raw agony of a brutalized victim and instantly reducing Brown's angelic image to horrific tabloid fodder. The media machinery tried to gloss it over, but profound decay had already set in. He became a self-destructing avatar of fame's crushing pressure, descending into a toxic romance with narcotics, self-medicating with lean, and unapologetically snorting lines of coke while staff watched in horror. The physical toll was undeniable as he withered, dropping 15 pounds in jail, his face gaunt like a walking corpse. Rampant paranoia consumed his digital footprint. He smashed studio windows, texted photos of gun stashes to terrify exes, faced a 7-hour police standoff over a weapon, and was hit with a devastating rape accusation in a Parisian luxury hotel. Fast forward to his recent live streams. A hollow shell casually admitting to a staggering $30,000 a month sedative habit just to stop his own violent impulses. We continuously double-tap their meticulously staged photos, willfully blind to the chilling, violent reality screaming from the other side of the screen. A horrific outburst in a sports car quickly shattered a young prince's reign. Decades earlier, however, a much older king had already perfected the art of locking away his atrocities, shielding a sprawling, inescapable syndicate of human suffering behind a velvet curtain of platinum records and undeniable musical genius. R. Kelly. In 1993, the album 12 Play dropped like a cultural bombshell, instantly crowning its creator as the undisputed king of R&B. I Believe I Can Fly wasn't just a hit, it was a generational anthem that cemented him as an immortal icon under the dazzling stage lights. He reached a pinnacle where awards rained down, millions worshipped his voice, and his genius seemed utterly untouchable. Yet, at the exact moment the world was elevating him to godhood, he was actively constructing a terrifying double life. Behind the forgiving spotlight, a horrific, earth-shattering secret was festering. In 1994, right at the summit of his career, he orchestrated a clandestine, illegal marriage to 15-year-old Aaliyah using a fake certificate. It was the first chilling glimpse of the silent predator lurking beneath the platinum records. The higher his charts climbed, the deeper his depravity sank. By 2002, when a horrifying tape involving a minor surfaced, the illusion shattered. He evaded justice for years, using his immense wealth to buy top lawyers and silence the public disgrace. He acted as an industry tyrant who stiffed collaborators and racked up $5 million in tax debts to fund his lavish, monstrous lifestyle. The ultimate sudden drop arrived with a documentary that exposed the invisible walls he built to trap his victims. It revealed grown women sharing their unimaginable raw agony, locked in secret apartments, starved, controlled, and stripped of all freedom. The man who wrote soaring anthems about flying was systematically caging human beings. Now, completely erased from the industry, he serves a 30-year sentence for human trafficking and running a criminal sex enterprise. From the global zenith of musical adoration to the cold, concrete floor of a federal prison cell, one must ask, what is the absolute worth of a legendary crown if it is forged entirely from the stolen innocence of others? Bursting out of these claustrophobic, locked apartments where victims suffered in silence, the scene abruptly shifts to a high-speed pursuit roaring across state lines, fueled by a completely different breed of frantic, uncontrollable madness. James Brown. Let us measure the catastrophic collapse of a powerhouse entirely through cold, unforgiving numbers. At the zenith of his golden illusion, the soul icon owned 17 sprawling homes, 3 radio stations, and a private airport, performing over 350 nights a year. But the math of his underworld ties was far more sinister. Briefcases stuffed with $50,000 in untraceable cash, an 80-minute police chase fueled by PCP and cocaine, and a Colombo Mafia link that left an investigator vanished without a trace. The true sudden drop is quantified by his violent destruction. He received a 6-year sentence, serving 27 months that dragged his legendary voice through sand. Behind his invisible walls, the casualty rate climbed. A battered wife dying suddenly before a trial, a stage manager burned alive in a car, and a suing technician who completely disappeared. By his final days, the raw agony was horrifyingly visible on the scale. A skeletal shadow weighing barely 110 pounds, requiring 2 men just to prop him upright on stage. He died entirely alone on Christmas Day 2006, remaining temporarily unburied for 75 agonizing days while 13 alleged children, 3 family factions, and dozens of lawyers tore his estate apart. The final equation is absolute. $1 million empire divided by endless greed always equals 0. Vultures ruthlessly dissected this rotting legacy inside sterile courtrooms, whereas another funk sovereign actively chose to convert his own lavish living room into a blood-stained chamber of torture. Rick James. Long before he was found dead in 2004 with 9 different drugs coursing through his veins, the mental architecture of the funk legend had already collapsed. His $11 million Motown deal and 15 million records sold were merely a golden illusion. Inside his mind, a silent predator of severe crack addiction and extreme paranoia had completely taken over. He didn't just consume narcotics, he allowed them to warp his reality into a twisted God complex. This psychological rot manifested violently during a sudden drop in the summer of 1991. For 3 days, his home became a chamber of raw agony where a dancer was tied up, beaten, and force-fed cocaine while James burned her hair with a Zippo lighter. Screaming, "I made this world. You're just trash," he displayed the terrifying symptoms of a mind disconnected from humanity. He repeated this unspeakable cruelty on a receptionist just a week later. Even after serving a mere 2 years of a potential 30-year sentence, the invisible punishment of his broken psyche remained. Watched closely by the FBI over mysterious disappearances and his bodyguards' murders, he lived his final years in complete isolation. The autopsy merely confirmed what his horrific actions had already proven. His soul had brutally died decades before his physical heart finally stopped beating. While one man actively transformed his own mind into a haunted graveyard, another singer chose to physically inhabit the ghost of a dead friend, wrapping himself in a stolen legacy that would rapidly drag him toward utter ruin. Bobby Womack. If the steering wheel of Sam Cooke's old Cadillac could speak, it would scream. Just 77 days after Cooke's tragic death, Womack gripped its leather, marrying his late mentor's widow. Womack moved into the mansion and paraded the car in a golden illusion of inherited royalty. But the upholstery soon absorbed the stench of a grotesque double life. The sudden drop ignited when Womack started a secret affair with Cooke's teenage stepdaughter, Linda. Caught completely naked in the studio, he faced the barrel of his enraged wife's gun. It didn't fire, but the resulting public disgrace permanently shattered his career. Banished from the stolen kingdom, Womack steered straight into the raw agony of a merciless foe. Heroin and cocaine rapidly eroded his soul, burning through $2.3 million in wild debauchery. He barely survived bloody brawls, his iconic voice withering into a raspy ghost. The ultimate betrayal was Womack allegedly pawning Sam's unreleased recordings for pennies, sinking deeper into his addiction. On June 27, 2014, he died in absolute solitude, his funeral attended by a pathetic 9 people. The Cadillac now sits rusting in the dark, the ignition completely silent, a cold monument to a man who couldn't outrun the ghost he stole from. Stealing a dead man's crown guaranteed a completely desolate farewell. Thousands of miles away, the industry's most divine vocal goddess was actively submerging her own billion-dollar legacy beneath the tepid water of a luxury hotel bathtub. Whitney Houston. I remember standing in the roaring crowd, feeling the sheer vibration of "I Will Always Love You" rattling my ribs. We looked up at her, a divine entity, a powerhouse wrapped in the golden illusion of absolute perfection, selling 45 million copies globally. But if you listened past the dazzling stage lights, you could hear the gasping of a suffocating soul. The sudden drop didn't happen on stage, it happened in the shadows. From 1993, dressing rooms mutated into dens of raw agony, where she and Bobby Brown blew $12,000 weekly on cocaine. It was terrifying to watch her wasting away, her pristine grace degraded into ugly tabloid fodder. We read about the bloody brawls, her throwing a phone at his face, him punching her stomach out of blind jealousy. Yet, she remained trapped in this toxic romance, refusing to testify against him in court. She buried her true heart, pushing away her secret lifelong love, Robin Crawford, creating a massive unfillable void. We watched helplessly as a woman worth millions pawned a literal Grammy to buy 20 sedative pills, burning $750,000 in 2 manic weeks. This invisible punishment bled onto her neglected daughter, Bobby Christina, who wandered hotel hallways alone while her mother vanished on benders. Then came February 11, 2012. I can almost feel the chilling dampness of that $375 a night Beverly Hilton room. Face down in hot water, broken nails, a wig strand floating, surrounded by Xanax and white powder. The greatest voice of a generation slipped beneath the surface, and the brightest spotlight in the world flickered, hissed, and went permanently dark. From the tragic silence of a flooded bathtub, the element of destruction morphs from suffocating water to searing heat, as another soul icon's flesh literally melted away inside his own Memphis bedroom. Al Green. Focus on the unworn wedding dress lying next to a seething pot of boiling water. This microscopic detail from a 1974 Memphis bedroom permanently shattered the golden illusion of the 70s soul king. Al Green, a 20 million selling powerhouse, lived a terrifying double life. The sudden drop arrived when his rejected lover doused him in scalding water, peeling away his skin in raw agony, before fatally shooting herself. The forgiving spotlight quickly buried the police files. Green was a silent predator, burning $8,000 weekly on drugs and prostitutes. He dodged the public disgrace of allegedly smashing a secretary's head through glass and abandoning multiple children. He hid behind a pastor's collar, preaching on Sundays to mask his sins. Ultimately, the burned scars on his hands are not holy marks, but cold, undeniable receipts of his monstrous hypocrisy. A hypocrite's religious robes might temporarily conceal a ruined reputation, yet no earthly disguise could prevent another baritone legend from accelerating directly into a fatal, blood-soaked highway collision. Dave Prater. In March 1988, a mangled car wreck in Georgia became a brutal coffin. Blood soaked the driver's seat, yet this gruesome death sparked no mourning. The man crushed inside was Dave Prater. Before this raw agony, He conquered the 60s with the iconic anthem Soul Man. But after a 1970 split, the sudden drop commenced. He plunged into a toxic romance with crack cocaine, abused his terrified wife, and entirely abandoned his children. By 1987, selling drugs to an undercover cop reduced his monumental legacy to a pathetic public disgrace. He ultimately proved that even the strongest, most enduring monuments eventually crumble into forgotten dust. A twisted chassis abruptly snuffed out a pioneer's existence, whereas a contemporary hitmaker consciously detonated his own thriving empire using a single devastatingly careless internet keystroke. CeeLo Green. A single tap on a screen became the merciless foe that annihilated this R&B powerhouse. CeeLo was the beloved voice behind Crazy and a famous TV judge. The sudden drop initiated when a woman accused him of slipping ecstasy into her drink at a 2012 party. His fatal mistake wasn't just the drug charge, it was tweeting, "If she's unconscious, it's not rape." That horrific sentence incinerated his golden illusion. His public disgrace exposed a double life of cocaine, affairs, and brawls. Stripped of his contracts and family, he remains trapped behind invisible walls, proving a careless keystroke can be a fatal death sentence. A digital confession abruptly erased this idol's relevance, whereas another legendary vocalist's descent originated entirely within a cold juvenile detention cell. Aaron Neville. The 1958 justice system didn't nurture a 17-year-old Aaron Neville, it simply caged him for car theft. That invisible punishment bred a silent predator of addiction. He didn't rehabilitate, he plunged into the raw agony of heroin. Despite building a golden illusion as a falsetto powerhouse, he lived a double life of IRS evasion and relentless infidelity. Tell It Like It Is eventually rescued his career, but the systemic blade of his youth left permanent scars. You can escape a physical cell, but the psychological chains remain. Escaping the law was his salvation, yet another Southern icon weaponized his freedom merely to orchestrate a chaotic symphony of shattered glass and drunken gunfire. Wilson Pickett. At his peak, in the midnight hour, cemented Wilson Pickett as an untouchable soul powerhouse. Yet, this golden illusion masked a terrifying reality. The sudden drop erupted inside a shattered Atlanta bar in 1973. Fueled by liquor, he smashed furniture and threatened to shoot patrons, reducing his legacy to public disgrace. He devolved into a toxic romance with alcohol, defined by brawls, a brutal 1987 crash, and reckless affairs. By 2006, his heart surrendered to the raw agony of self-destruction. What good is defining the midnight hour if you remain permanently trapped in the dark? A pioneer's demise offers a glaring warning, yet a subsequent generation's prodigy completely ignored these footprints, deliberately dismantling his own reigning monarchy. Bobby Brown. Let us quantify the destruction of an R&B trailblazer using cold mathematics. The baseline was a golden illusion of 90s chart-topping hits. The terrifying subtraction began with a $10,000 fine in 1993 for brutally beating Whitney Houston. The equation of his sudden drop accelerated when he burned $1,500 weekly on cocaine, briefly leaving this global icon homeless under a Los Angeles bridge. The raw agony was measurable. A missing 48-hour block of memory during a 1996 drunk driving arrest, and 7 children scattered across 4 different women, multiplying the collateral damage of his toxic romance. By their bitter 2007 divorce, his reputation equaled mathematically zero. When you subtract accountability from immense talent, the only remainder is permanent ruin. While this volatile star dismantled his empire through public brawls, an older architect of romance quietly drowned his own 6-decade legacy in an identical sea of secret betrayals and federal tax evasion. Ronald Isley. Let us examine a single 2006 federal tax indictment. This cold document permanently shattered the golden illusion of Ronald Isley. As the 6-decade cornerstone of the Isley brothers, his voice commanded the dazzling stage lights with immortal anthems. Yet, a silent predator of severe cocaine addiction had festered behind the velvet curtains. The sudden drop accelerated when his seemingly picture-perfect family fractured over relentless secret affairs, culminating in a vicious 2002 divorce. The raw agony of his deteriorating talent and cancelled shows eventually locked him in a 3-year prison sentence for evading $3 million. Ultimately, the most legendary voice cannot sing its way out of a federal conviction. Handcuffs and tax forms represent a quiet, bureaucratic demise. Down the street, however, the deafening echo of a gunshot from a father's revolver was about to abruptly cancel another musical genius's breath. Marvin Gaye. On April 1, 1984, a musical genius was fatally shot twice by his own father. Before this raw agony, Gaye was a powerhouse who shook the world with "What's Going On?" Yet, beneath his golden illusion, a silent predator of addiction devoured him. He mutated into a wandering ghost, drowning under severe tax debt and a vicious 1977 divorce. His illusion shattered as domestic violence rumors left him profoundly isolated. A voice capable of healing an entire generation couldn't soothe the fatal hatred inside his own home. Blood soaking a family carpet finalized a prophet's demise. Elsewhere, the sterile glare of a Chicago bank vault illuminated the last desperate heist of another fading star. Check Woolery. If the cold steel of a Chicago bank vault could testify, it would describe the ultimate desperation of a fallen star. In 1988, that vault held $20,000, a trivial sum when Chuck Woolery and the Impressions were building their golden illusion with timeless hits like Gypsy Woman. But the vault didn't see a musical genius, it only witnessed a trembling addict. A silent predator of severe cocaine addiction had already devoured his career and dismantled his life. The sudden drop was this incredibly clumsy heist, instantly replacing the dazzling stage lights with a devastating 15-year prison sentence. Driven by the raw agony of confinement, he faked an illness in 1990 to orchestrate a desperate escape, surviving as a terrified fugitive. He ran from the law until his inevitable 1992 recapture in Texas. The microphone he once commanded now stands permanently silent, a cold, unfeeling monument to a man whose soul and legacy were completely bankrupt.